Welcome. My name is Shane Plasky, and I'm here to talk to you about the Lamoni Gifted and Talented program. And let's get real. When most people hear the word gifted, they probably picture the kid who always raises their hand or finishes their work early and aces every test. But giftedness, well, it's so much more than that. It's about how students think, how they feel, and how they see and engage in the world around them. Ever had a million thoughts racing through your head at once while everybody else has seemed to move on? Or have you ever asked a question so deep that your teacher just blinked at you for a few seconds? If so, you might just be gifted. Now, giftedness, it isn't a one size fits all model. Some students excel in academics, sure, but others are natural leaders, creative thinkers, innovators, explorers, or deep problem solvers. Here's the challenge. Traditional gifted identification that relies only on things like standardized tests only captures part of the picture. And this means that a whole lot of gifted kids fly under the radar. And this is especially important in rural communities like ours, where recognizing giftedness can become even trickier. It's not just about test scores, it's about finding potential, looking at who are problem solvers, who are creative thinkers, and how the students interact in the world around them. Now, that's why at Lamoni Community Schools, we're rethinking how we see giftedness and moving beyond just numbers to understand the holistic development of our students. So, whether you're a teacher, a parent, or even a student yourself, this video is here to help you spot maybe some of the hidden sign of giftedness, traits that may not show up on a test, but in all reality matter just as much. Because recognizing gifted potential, well, that's just the first step. Empowering it, now that's where the magic happens. So let's get started. Because if any of this sounds like you or someone you know, you might just be gifted. And trust me, that's a pretty awesome thing. First of all, let's clear something up. Giftedness, well, it isn't just about getting straight A's or loving school. In fact, some of the most gifted students feel like school doesn't quite fit them at all. Maybe you've been called too much, or maybe too intense, or too sensitive, or too curious, or too something or another. Or maybe you just feel like you don't quite belong. If this sounds familiar, it could be a sign of giftedness. Ever ask a question so deep that your teacher just stared at you? Or do you see patterns and ideas in things that others don't quite seem to see? Do you get frustrated when people quickly want to move on without really taking the time to explore a concept? This is called advanced conceptual thinking, and it's a major sign of being gifted. Ever been told that you're too sensitive? Maybe you feel emotions so intensely that you get overwhelmed by things that others don't even seem to care about. Or maybe you just can't let go of something that seems unfair because it genuinely hurts and bothers you. Well, gifted students often experience what's called heightened sensitivity, both emotionally and physically. And it's not a weakness, it's a sign of deep emotional intelligence, sometimes called EQ. Have you ever gone down that research rabbit hole so deep that suddenly it's 3 hours later and you somehow learned everything about space or Pokemon or another passion area? Well, gifted students, they don't just like learning, they become obsessed with topics that interest them and can explore them for hours. But here's the kicker, if they're not quite interested, well, it can sometimes be a challenge to get them to engage. Have you ever looked at a problem and thought, there gots to be a better way to do this? Well, gifted students don't just follow instructions, they often challenge them, reshape them, and innovate or suggest solutions that others don't quite seem to think of. It's why they are sometimes even labeled difficult, but in reality, they're just thinking beyond the obvious. Ever felt like nothing you do is good enough, that everyone's judging you, even if they're telling you you're amazing? Perfectionism isn't just about wanting to do well, it's about being terrified of failure. It's about thinking deeply about how others see us. Some gifted students freeze up, procrastinate, and can even avoid challenges because they'd rather not try to risk messing up. If this sounds familiar, then you can and might be gifted, and it's also an opportunity to step back and be a little bit kinder to yourself. Now, if any of these things that we've talked about sound like you, or a student you know, well, giftedness might be part of the equation of their life. But recognizing these traits is just the beginning. Next, we'll dive into how giftedness may look different in rural communities for twice exceptional learners and students from diverse backgrounds, and why expanding our view of gifted and talented matters more now than ever. First of all, we need to bust the myth. Giftedness, it isn't just about high test scores or fancy enrichment programs. It exists everywhere, including in rural communities like ours, creative spaces, and hands-on learning environments. Some students show their abilities in ways that don't fit the traditional model. And when we rely on too much on standardized testing, well, we miss them. For example, we need to start looking at things like creative problem solving and innovation. Think about students who build, design, and invent rather than just memorize. We need to look at things like cultural intelligence and leadership. Students who understand people and their communities and care deeply about them and naturally step up to lead and spend hours, that obsessive mind frame, engaging in those areas. We also need to expand our ideas to think about artistic and musical and athletic and other types of giftedness. Students who can compose, perform, or create in ways that don't quite get measured on standardized testing. In rural schools, gifted students often lack advanced coursework, enrichment programs, or even access to specialized educators or to specialized courses, which could impact their ability to score high on traditional intelligence testing. That doesn't mean they're not gifted. It just means we need to look in the right places to recognize them. For example, some students are natural leaders in their communities, but may not stand out in the classroom. Others are self taught learners mastering complex skills outside of school. Others are highly motivated, but might find themselves completely checked out of school because they're bored and thinking about possibilities that lie outside of school in their communities. And others think deeply, but may not do well on standardized tests. We also have what's called twice exceptional, meaning that we have students that have high abilities and at the same time learning challenges such as ADHD. The problem is that traditional gifted testing may miss them because their strengths and their weaknesses often contradict each other. For example, they might struggle with attention, but they can get hyper focused and do amazing things in topics they care about. They might have advanced verbal skills or communication skills, but have difficulty in writing and math. They might be labeled as difficult or challenging when in reality, they're just gifted students trying to understand a system that doesn't quite fit them. Now, gifted students, well, they're everywhere, and it's about time that we start seeing them for who they really are. All right, let's start to wrap up. Giftedness, it isn't just about being smart. It's about curiosity, creativity, problem solving, recognizing and being able to, deal with one's emotions and seeing the world in unique and sometimes divergent ways. We've talked about how giftedness looks different for everyone and how it can be hidden in rural communities and how students, parents, and teachers can work together to recognize and support it. But here's the big question. What do we do now? At Lamoni Community Schools, we believe that giftedness is more than achievement. It's potential waiting to be nurtured. Let's work together to create a learning environment where every gifted student, no matter how they think, how they feel, how they engage, and how they learn, can thrive. Because when we recognize and support all forms of giftedness, we unlock a future filled with limitless possibilities. Every gifted student deserves to be seen, deserves to be challenged, and deserves to be supported. And this starts with us. If we want to truly serve all gifted students, we have to expand our view of what giftedness looks like. And here's some things that we can do right now. Teachers, start looking beyond test scores. Pay attention to how students think, question, and engage. Giftedness doesn't always show up in obvious ways. So, differentiating our classroom and giving students different ways that they can express what they know can unlock things that we may not normally see. Parents, advocate for your child. If you see these big ideas, deep emotions, or a hunger for learning and this obsessiveness, talk to their teachers. Giftedness isn't just about grades, and students, embrace the way you think. You don't have to fit a mold to be gifted. Your mind is powerful. Feel free to explore, question, create, and express who you are and how you see and engage in the world. I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and I look forward to working with you as the year progresses. Have a great day.